Hello there guys, what is going on? SonOfChelsea back here again for the first video on this channel for quite a while. I didn't just want to go straight into a discussion with Adam, which I'm excited to do so because I really enjoy speaking to Adam, one of my friends, someone who I admire and respect a lot. His work, obviously, a colleague at Football.London now, but obviously I haven't uploaded on this channel for about over a month now, and I think you guys obviously deserve an explanation in terms of the future of this channel. I don't want it to just go away and die, especially after starting this new role in Football London, because I worked so hard building this channel up. I appreciate the community we were able to build and get to a point where this, having this channel, meant a lot, not only personally to me, but professionally. It's been such a great thing for me and sort of the steps I'm taking in the industry now. So I want to continue doing it because in my own way, I think it's a great place to have longer form discussions, to give you my views for the people who've supported this channel for so long. For the time being, it'll probably just be over. I know this is kind of even old fashioned to say now, webcam. It'll be kind of this setup. Time efficient wise, for other reasons too. In the future, I want to get back to sort of my old setup of the camera, the lights, everything. I mean, I've got a light right there, but just for time efficient sake, because obviously with the new role that I've been in for the last 6 months and adjusting to it, this is probably a better way of doing it. And because I want to give you my views, I still want to be putting content out there because this channel, as I say, means a lot to me, and it's kind of the bedrock, the foundation of all of my Chelsea content, for all the stuff I've done, writing articles, podcasts, wherever Son of Chelsea was the beginning of it really for me. So it still means a lot to me. Just to introduce, as I keep on rambling and probably bore you now, and probably people skip forward to the beginning of the discussion. Yeah, Adam is a close friend of mine. As a colleague now at Football London, I admire him, I respect him, I love his work. He's given me so much great advice. He's helped me. And this conversation we have is kind of more broad because obviously I've missed a lot of games on the channel. We speak about backing Tuchel, reflecting on the last time Adam was on his channel, which was, believe it or not, a couple of days after the Champions League victory in Porto, and kind of where we felt about Chelsea then. What if we had known what was going to happen this season back then, what would we feel? And kind of just looking forward under Tuchel, will Chelsea back Tuchel, the squad, the recruitment, looking forward, and kind of a more broader general discussion that I really enjoy having with guests, as you know, on this channel. So it's going to be a 2 or 3 part discussion here. The first part, as I say, is kind of analysing, looking back at Porto and kind of reflecting on what's happened since. We were just having this conversation, me and Adam, about the last time you're on my channel. Yes, as people probably know, we have had many discussions on streams in a different universe since then about across the Chelsea multiverse. But the last time we spoke on this channel was, I think, 3 or 4 days, I want to say, after the Champions League final in Porto, which obviously was a game you were at. We sort of had a 20-minute discussion reflecting on it, the euphoria of it, some of the key performers, the experience of you being there, reporting on the game. And I just wonder, obviously, how high we all felt back then in May. It's such a long time ago now. If I would have told you back then, because I think we probably had a conversation that veered into what was going to happen this season. If I'd have told you back then that where Chelsea are now, okay, we don't look like we're in a title race, but we've made the Carabao Cup final. We obviously are in a Club World Cup. There's been some major injuries. There's been a January without major transfers. Lukaku has come in, but he hasn't quite hit the heights we expected. What would have been your reaction if I would have sold this reality in 2022, February 2022 to you back then in May 2021?
As a Chelsea fan of 25, 6 odd years now, I would probably not have been surprised, if I'm being honest. It's been a strange sort of however many months it's been now, so 8 months since Porto. I mean, there's been a lot of progress made, I think, under Tuchel, but it hasn't probably maybe been as drastic as we maybe expected after Porto. I think there was, as you say, there was that feeling of euphoria of this team can go anywhere. Look how young it is. Look how good the performances are from certain players. I guess we expected people like Kai to kick on to another level this season. That hasn't happened. I think there was maybe hope that Timo Werner would come good with a full sort of pre-season, best part of a pre-season under Tuchel. That hasn't happened. Yes, we got the goal scorer that we felt we needed, but that hasn't clicked yet, as you say. So it's a strange position, I guess, to evaluate from, because I do think there's a lot of progress been made under Tuchel. I do think that Chelsea as a club are going in a much better direction at the moment. But as you've written about, and as I've written about a lot in the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks, I actually think the forthcoming months, sort of the next 2-3 months, are going to be very, very important to Chelsea Football Club for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, because I really think this summer is going to be the summer that defines what Tuchel becomes and does at Chelsea. Because, as we've said before, there's big decisions to make over key players, which we could probably get onto in a bit. There's important transfer targets to identify and then go and get, because I know that's a massive bone of contention among the fan base at the moment, is signings. And there's a clear vision is needed at this point to be worked towards. And I think speaking to people at the club, there is a feeling that Tuchel can be the guy to break this Abramovich hire and fire, but hey, it doesn't matter policy. I think there's a genuine feeling that Tuchel is the one, maybe, to try and actually stick around for a good few years because of the way he operates within the club, because he is a brilliant coach. Yes, he can be very hard on players sometimes within games, but he's also very personable with a lot of them off the pitch. So there's a lot of good ingredients there, and I do think this summer we're going to be putting them all into a pan and then hoping for the best and hoping that things do go well from next season onwards.
I feel like we can be quite cynical. I can be quite cynical of sort of the short-termism of Chelsea. I'm kind of, I don't want to get too fairy tale about it now. I was naive to walk into that trap under Frank Lampard. So I'm kind of like, we all know this is going to blow up in 18 months. So who cares, right? Just we'll win as much as we can in the time being, and whatever, we'll move on. But surely, as you've said, in terms of the club, they clearly can see the league table. Like, people working in the game, we write about the game, and obviously we looking at the league table, talking about these things. I can't believe that the hierarchy at Chelsea can't see the pattern we've seen for the last 3 or 4 years of us being miles away from the league champions. The way Man City and Liverpool have been structured, particularly Man City, and the consistent success they've had. Surely that should ring alarm bells. Surely the penny's got to drop. I mean, it's quite interesting to me, especially maybe from some fans' perspective, of this ruthless Chelsea and kind of the way Chelsea are built up as this really efficient, ruthless, clinical organisation. But I don't know if that's quite been, when you look at, say, the way we've operated the league, that doesn't quite chime the same way. And I just wonder, is there going to come a point where something's got to give here, especially if Abramovich wants to see Chelsea return to the way they were under Mourinho in, say, the mid-noughties?
Yeah, I think that is that. I could be very cynical about it as well, but I think there is probably a certain reality dawning on people at the club that look at what, not so much Man City, because Man City do have an absolute fortune to spend it, and let's not pretend they haven't made transfer market mistakes at times, and then gone out and spent another 50 million on a fullback. It's what Manchester City can do, and to an extent, it's what Chelsea can do if they really wanted to under Roman. But they've sort of pulled back a little bit from that kind of sort of reckless abandon in the transfer market. I guess the example to me is Liverpool, just because they don't have this huge benefactor behind them. They have managed to ascend back to the top of the Premier League through very smart recruiting, very clear identity of what they have under Jurgen Klopp. And I think if you're Chelsea, you've got to look at that, not to be, again, cynical, but just from a business perspective. If you're Chelsea, you made 145 odd million pounds loss last year. You haven't seen a massive return yet on a lot of your investments. You haven't seen Timo Werner prove why Chelsea spent the best, nearly 50 million pounds on him. We haven't seen Kai yet deliver, barring his Champions League final goal. We haven't seen him deliver on the 70 odd million Chelsea spent on him. Romelu's come in and for the best part of 100 million hasn't hit the ground running. Hakim Ziyech is maybe just starting to show what he can really do, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, because it has been maybe just one game at the moment. Pulisic the same. And if you're Chelsea, you're looking at the money you've spent on a lot of players. And just from a business perspective, you've got to be looking at it and going, something's not working for us here. We're not getting the value that a Liverpool are on signings, and to an extent Manchester City. So I do think there will be some appreciation of that fact, and sort of looking into the reasons why that Liverpool and Manchester City have managed to pull away and on the pitch and based on the work off the pitch. And again, I think Tuchel is the one to really. I don't think Tuchel. If Tuchel was to go, is there a better coach for Chelsea to turn to at this moment in time? I'm not sure there is. I'm not sure they could get anyone better than him. So it does seem the moment that they've stumbled into, because this is how Chelsea tend to work. They stumble into things. They've stumbled into this situation with Thomas Tuchel, where they've got a brilliant coach who seems very happy at the club, very content with how it operates, doesn't kick up a fuss like Antonio Conte did when they weren't signing, sort of just accepted that there's no point signing players like Davide Sappacosta or that ilk for the sake of it. And if you're not going to build around this coach, I don't know when Chelsea do. And I think that's the big sort of question mark for me. And we'll see if Chelsea do break their cycle. I'm very, very hesitant always. When people around the club tell me things like, yeah, they really like Tuchel and Tuchel really likes it, it could be the one here. I'm very much like, well, we were told that Frank Lampard was a 3-year project and that was ditched. So I'm never going to buy into this sort of idyllic Chelsea are going to have a dynasty under a head coach, because I'm not naive enough. But I do think maybe Tuchel could last a good 3 or 4 seasons, which I think in the Abramovich era would be a tenure for the ages, basically.
I mean, it really would. It would feel like a massive. He could really build something there. 3 or 4 years in sort of, if you want to look at, say, the Bayern Munich model. I mean, I expect Nagelsmann will probably, if he does well, he'll probably stay there for 3 years. Guardiola, I think, was there for 3 years before he joined City. I think in modern football, that's a good period of time, especially at a club as chaotic as Chelsea. As you said there about I go back to the summer of 2020 where we were having these press briefings of a 3-year plan. And then 5 months later, Frank was sacked. So whatever you think about whether Frank should have been sacked or not sacked, I mean, it does come back to the thing of it's easy enough to say that. And when everything was so positive around Frank that summer with so many new signings coming in, there was a feeling of injection of a new era. And then, of course, it all changes once the results plummet and we find out that Frank could have left the summer before and, there were problems long before that. So we have to wait and see. Backing Tuchel is a phrase that obviously has become a bit of a meme on social media now. I've heard it most through January, and obviously we had many conversations on Football.London about this. The Emerson kind of thing of Tuchel preferring Emerson. Of course, Chelsea couldn't get him back. I just wonder what you think backing Tuchel looks like, because I think it's a very simplistic phrase that kind of veers into we just sign whoever Tuchel wants. We do whatever he wants. And as the conversation we just had, if you just back one coach, there are obvious pitfalls to that, as Everton have very dramatically shown in the past month, basically, with sacking Benitez after allowing him to dismiss a lot of very vital people in that club.
Yeah, it's a very nuanced conversation around this, and it isn't black and white. It isn't make signings and don't make signings. Tuchel's had 2 transfer windows. I know I saw something floating around on social media the other day saying 3, but he arrived on the 26th of January. I mean, that wasn't a transfer window for him, was it?
And we weren't going to make any sign. I mean, you've got to think back to January. I mean, we weren't making any signings that window anyway. There's no need to.
And I think actually what was going to happen in that sort of the only big decision took was Billy Gilmour was going to head out on loan, and Tuchel decided not to let him. So the summer transfer window is interesting because, and I'm very sure Tuchel said himself publicly about this, that he wouldn't be upset if there were no signings, because he liked the squad, he liked the environment. I think he said something along the lines of, I like the environment I've got here. I don't want to mess that up by pushing hard and trying to get signings for the sake of it. But he did want, first and foremost, a goal scorer. Now, that was Tuchel's brief almost. Look, we need a guy. We're a club here. We're a side that's created lots of chances this season. We haven't taken them. What we need is a guy to finish those chances. Who can we get? And Chelsea come back and go, okay, well, look, this is the market. This is where we think we can do a deal. We can do it for X, Y, and Z player. I think we probably know the names. And they pushed for Haaland. It wasn't viable for the club, which Tuchel accepted. And then Lukaku was, I mean, I think out of the three names, I think Harry Kane would have been, the dream. But come on, let's not beat around the bush. That was never going to happen. So then you come to Romelu Lukaku, and Tuchel was happy to have Romelu Lukaku in his side. Now the club go and sign him. That's the club backing Tuchel because they got what he wanted in a goal scorer. He didn't say to them, I don't believe, I want this one player. And if I don't get this one player, then whoever else you bring in, not going to be happy with that. I don't think that's how it works. That's how it, that conversation, that sort of joined up thinking of Tuchel having a position he wants to strengthen, the club having options, and Tuchel being involved in the process and being content and pleased with the options brought in. That's how it should work. Now you get to January, and again, you've got one position you want to strengthen, and Tuchel says to the club, this is the guy, I think Emerson's the guy I'd like back. And the club go, okay, we're going to look very stupid here, but we'll try and get Emerson back. We'll offer Leo money. And they'll say no. And if that's happened, that's not great look for us, because we are going to look very almost sort of unprofessional here that we've loaned out a guy. So then you get into this debate about what's backing Tuchel again. Now, the club did try and get the guy he wants. Now, do they go and just sign a player for the sake of signing a player? Well, evidently no, because Tuchel didn't want that. He didn't want just and I don't want to be dismissive of someone like a Serginho Dest, but Chelsea, I'm sure Chelsea, if they pushed hard enough to Barcelona, could have got Serginho Dest if he wanted to come. But they never did that because Tuchel was content enough with what he had. He didn't think there was massive upgrades out there on what they had. So at that point, you come to this sort of unified agreement of, yeah, okay, let's keep our powder dry. Let's think about the summer. And that's, to some people, that will be like, well, you're not signing anyone, so surely you're not backing Tuchel. But I think it is very complicated. Now, I think in the summer will be the one where we'll learn a lot more, because there are positions we need to improve. There are positions Tuchel wants improved. I think we know the names again. You look at Tchouameni, Declan Rice, Jules Koundé. The names are out there already. So now it's whether or not Chelsea can go get those deals done. And I think if they do, then all this noise about Tuchel and backing Tuchel will stop quite quickly. It'll be interesting to see how Tuchel behaves this summer if key players don't arrive, because we know he has a history of getting spiky when he feels when he feels aggrieved about something, people know about it. So yes, I think Chelsea have backed Tuchel. I don't think it's blindly backing him and just going in the market and going nuts. But we'll learn more this summer about this harmony between Tuchel and the club and how strong it really is, because it won't be easy for Chelsea to sign Declan Rice. It won't be easy for Chelsea to sign Tchouameni. It won't. Well, Jules Koundé has a buyout clause, which makes it easy. If Chelsea really want him, they can just go and get him. So, yeah, as I say, there's a lot of nuance to it. But the positive thing, if you're a Chelsea fan, the positive thing has to be that Tuchel seems, and by all accounts, is happy and content and not blowing a gasket because Chelsea didn't bring in Serginho Dest in January.